Hey everybody, hope you guys are doing well. Stacey Jones here, and as you guys know, some of you may know, some of you may not know, but May is mental health awareness month, and I'm so excited because as we talk about mental health, I have a very special guest today. His name is Peter Pignon. Me and Peter went to the same university. He graduated a little bit earlier than I did, but he jumped into the mental health field, and he is currently serving people right now. And so I'm so glad to have him today. Peter, welcome.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm so excited. How you doing?
I'm doing really well. It's a good
All
day.
right. Well,
Yeah.
Peter, let's just jump into it. Tell us about yourself. Tell us who you are, what inspired you to really pursue this direction of helping people, mental health counseling, and things of that nature.
Yeah, of course. Of course. Well, I guess in life right now, I'm married to Lindsay. We have four awesome, energetic kids, and so
That's
that's a
awesome.
big chunk of what I do. And then I have my own practice called Minds Connected,
Awesome.
and I
Mine's connected.
serve as many people as possible with professional counseling and coaching, and we do workshops for churches and nonprofits, and just trying to help as
Awesome.
many people as possible.
Wow. How long have you been doing this?
I've been doing private practice work since 2016, so
Okay.
we're coming up on our 10-year next year, and we're excited about that.
Wow.
But
Congratulations.
counseling, I've been doing it since 2011. I
Gotcha.
remember it was in January that I had my first session, and that was a big moment for me to be
Wow.
able to do that. Yeah, I,
That's
I I
incredible.
instantly knew this is what I wanted to do the rest of my life.
Wow.
Yeah,
So
it's
before
really
you
cool.
completely knew, what inspired that for you to kind of jump into counseling?
Yeah, I think when I was young, growing up with my parents being pastors and watching them love people, watching them help people
Mm.
through the difficult times, I was definitely inspired by the way that they did that.
Hmm.
Um, and I wanted to be a pastor just like my dad. I was like, I'm gonna
Okay.
be like my dad. I want to be a pastor. And then I was also nerdy, so I was like, I want to be a scientist. So it's kind of
Oh,
like I wanted to figure out how to put those things together. And I remember one time I was in my dad's library, and he had a book that said pastoral counseling on it. And I was like, Dad, what is that? And he
mm.
was like, well, before church and after church, when I'm chatting with people, and sometimes when we go to people's houses for dinner and we're
Hmm.
talking with them, well, that's what pastoral counseling is. It's like you're
Mm.
taking the Bible and you're helping them apply it to their lives on a very deep and specific way. And I was
Gotcha.
like, man, I would love to just do that because I don't like being on stage. Like the whole public speaking thing, like I'm not down with that. I really like just like having the conversation with people. And I wasn't even a teenager yet. I was a tween at the time.
Gotcha.
And I'd also struggled with depression and anxiety and trauma.
Mm.
And I had no idea at that time that all that stuff was going on.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes a lot of us that get in this field have our own struggles,
Yeah.
and even
100%.
subconsciously, like in no way was I like, I'm going to study counseling and psychology because I want to figure myself out. But
Right.
in the background now, I know that
Yes.
that was running.
Yes.
I know
That's
I wanted to
huge.
be like, I want to understand myself.
Yeah.
And to go even deeper, there was almost this prayer inside of me that was like, God, make me so healthy, make me
Mm.
so skilled that I don't have to open up or need anybody because I'd been hurt.
Wow.
I'm like, I want to be able to learn all the tools. I want to know all the strategies
Yeah.
so that I can just help myself and put it all
Yeah.
into practice. I'm not going to be a Pharisee, or I'm not going to be a hypocrite. I'm gonna practice what I teach, all the tools, but
Yeah.
the relational side of actually opening up to another person, is specifically at me going to get counseling and therapy myself. I was like,
Yeah.
I don't want to do. I don't know. I ain't ready for all that.
Wow.
So
That is
yeah.
very, very interesting. And so
Hmm.
I can only assume through your journey of your courses and your classes, you start identifying certain things and you were able to figure out certain challenges that you went through throughout your life that were connected to certain things. And
Yeah.
I mean, that really, I think that, like you said, in my opinion, I think a lot of counselors they pursue the field because they obviously want to help people.
Yeah.
But there's some things that they're working through as well.
Mm-hmm.
And as they work through that, I think they also come into this place where they get these tools to passionately help people overcome and walk through the same thing. And it is so awesome.
Yeah.
It's so awesome.
Yeah. And I think that I really am grateful that the Lord did not answer that prayer of making me so healthy that I didn't need anybody.
Yeah.
That I didn't need to help myself. And I remember that even some of the trauma was stuffed down in some part of my memory.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know. Like back in the day when you and I met, I didn't even know what my trauma actually was.
Wow.
And it wasn't until the last year of my master's degree when I was in the library doing a research project on helping children through abuse. And when I'm opening that book, it's describing what trauma is and, children that have gone through this. And it's like, it's explaining it. And all of a sudden the neurotransmitters and the synaptics things are just going off. And I mean, it felt like light just going off inside of me. I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And I had the memories came back of the things that I had stuffed down that I didn't remember until that point. And
that's amazing.
And so I'd made it through undergraduate school, had my bachelor's in counseling, and I had almost walked the stage again with a master's in clinical psychology and counseling. And so I was about to be trained, and I still hadn't accessed those things that I needed to work on myself.
Oh, Peter, you just said something. You just said something, because I think sometimes people think that counselors and therapists are perfect. They think that because you have a degree and you have letters behind your name, that your life is perfect. And they don't understand that there are really deep things that you have to process. And let me just say, there may be counselors out there that know how to utilize the strategies and methodologies to help people and are not using them themselves, which brings me to my next question.
Yeah.
What is mental health to you? When you hear the word mental health, when people talk about mental health, what are some of the first things that come to your mind?
Yeah, I think it's 3 different things in 5 different areas. So the 3 things that I process for myself, and this is on the other side of actually today, I celebrate 10 years of actually going to counseling and therapy myself.
Wow.
So this is not like back then.
Yeah.
Textbook stuff. This is what I've learned now.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing.
So I think it's the ability to get awareness and then evaluate that awareness and then manage our thoughts. So those are 3 things: our thoughts, emotions, behaviors, and then our physical reactions and our relationships. So the 3 things. So we're aware of a thought, then we evaluate that thought, and then we can manage that thought, not control it. Because I wish I could teach that. If I could teach mind control, there'd be a whole other field to be in. But it's management, and biblically to me, it's stewarding. It's stewarding the thought, the emotion, the physical sensation of whatever's going on in our body and our brain, and then the relationships that we have either with God or with other people. It's all of that. First, you got to be aware.
Right.
Then you evaluate what you're aware of, and then you manage it. You steward that.
That's huge.
So that's what health looks like to me, because in all of those areas, if we have low awareness of what it is that's going on mentally, emotionally, physically, in our relationships and behavior, we're going to struggle.
That's really
Any one
good.
of those areas, we're going to struggle.
100%. I think that a lot of people, when you say awareness, I don't think people really invest or look into what that really means. People want help, they want therapy, they want to get better, but I don't think people really understand the depth of what awareness really is.
Hmm.
Because it has to start there. Because
Yeah.
if you're feeling things, if you're thinking things, the only way to kind of launch from that place in a healthy way is to become aware of what's actually happening within
Yeah.
inside of you.
Yeah.
And that takes sitting in that moment. That takes almost being bored. That takes coming off of your cell phone. That takes coming away from family. And I think that we're so caught up in life sometimes that we are not intentionally assessing where we really are. We
Hmm.
just get to a place and we pop
Yeah.
off at people and we
Yeah.
make a big, huge mistake and we're like, what is going on with me?
Yeah.
Well, you probably haven't been intentional about self-awareness,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So
And
that's
that's
awesome.
part of my story because I couldn't steward and manage and evaluate my trauma
Mm.
because I was not aware of it. And it wasn't until that last year of my master's degree that I became aware of what had happened to me,
Mm-hmm.
and then I could start.
Wow.
I'd gotten as healthy as I could to the level of awareness that I was living at.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think now, that if you're aware, your self awareness is
That's
at
good.
50%, then the max capacity that you have for evaluation and management is
Ooh,
50%.
that's
And so the
really
only
good.
way to get healthier is to pursue awareness, to get as
Yeah.
high as you can and to understand what it is that's going on, to face the thoughts, to face the emotions, and
Yeah.
even the, like I said, it's physical feelings too. Like,
Yes.
we feel it in our chest, or we feel it in our shoulders or our gut. It's like, oh my goodness, sometimes it's headaches, and all of that is, if you pay attention, you're like, wow, why is it when I talk about this topic that physical
Ooh,
feeling comes? And
that is so
that's
good.
awareness. And then and the question that I just asked, that's an evaluation question. Is like, I'm
Right.
aware that my stomach gets tight every time I talk about this person. Now I'm bringing in a
Right.
relational dynamic. And so all of that
Ooh.
helps us to, we're aware of it, and then we evaluate what, don't just, have that self-awareness. And I think that's what we struggle as a
Yeah.
society, because a lot of people are preaching self-awareness, but then we
Mm.
don't know what to do with it. So it's like, we're unpacking all
Mm.
this stuff, we're putting it on the table, and it's like, well, good luck now. What do I do? So that's the
Right.
evaluation, and that's the being able to now sort it and file it in a way, understand it,
Yeah.
like we said, and then that moves to the stewardship of it's not actually dwelling on our trauma or
Right.
dwelling on the negative too much, but it's
Mm-hmm.
putting it in its rightful place. I
That's
think that's what is
good.
is so important for us as human beings, and a lot of that has to do with us understanding our story.
That's really good. So after we get to a place where we're self-aware, we can evaluate and manage.
Hmm.
How does a person move into a place of cultivating a healthy mental health life? What is it? Well, I guess you can answer this in two ways. What does
Yeah.
a healthy mental health look like? And then how does a person actually get there?
Mm.
If you have someone who's saying, "Listen, I know mentally, emotionally, I'm unhealthy."
Yeah.
And so how can I start after I identify, I'm aware, I evaluate, I manage? What are some things that I can practically do
Mm.
to have a healthy mental health life?
Yeah. I think my favorite tool is scaling, and this won't be news
Mm,
to you, but this is the tool I use every single day,
okay.
and I call it the measuring tape of the mind. So
Okay.
it's like a tool that I think of, like, you have something in your life, but you don't know how big it is, you don't know how wide it is, you're not sure how tall it is,
Mm-hmm.
and when you take scaling out, you're able to look at it for real. So I think what I ask myself every day is, if 0 is the worst I've ever been
Okay.
and 10 is the best I've ever been,
Okay.
where am I today?
Mm.
Where am I today in relationship to that? So I asked myself that this morning, and then once I admit that to myself, I'm aware of it, then I share that with the Lord. I'm like, Lord, I'm a 7 today,
Mm.
and I would love to be a 10, but I've been bottomed out before. So
Yeah.
the key with scaling in this way is that it can't be 10 represents the best a human being could ever be. That's a game to play. We don't want to
Mm.
play that. 10 has to be where you've actually been. What is the best you've ever been in, if you're an adult, in your adult life? If you're a
Okay.
teenager, in your teen life? What's the best you have ever been, holistically speaking?
Okay.
And then 0 has to represent the worst you've ever been,
Okay.
holistically speaking, as well. And so once you're aware of that, and you automatically start to evaluate, well, I'm a 7 today. Okay. Well, what would it take? So now this is evaluation. What
Okay.
would it take to get me to a 7.5?
Okay.
And we're talking about a baby step here. What would what would make it a 7.5?
Okay.
And that might be, okay, you know what if I went on a walk? Or what if I went to the gym? Or what if I did some journaling? So now
Mm.
the evaluation is not just the awareness of our thoughts, emotions, physical realities,
Yeah.
behaviors, and relationships, but now we're saying, what could I do? What could I do
Mm.
to impact those things that I'm feeling? And what would it take to get closer to my best? So not
Gotcha.
best is the 10, but what would be better would be 7.5 or an 8.
Mm.
And that's
That's
when we
really
start
good.
to brainstorm and
Yeah.
think about different ways that we could make things better. Sometimes it might be a bubble bath. Sometimes it might be prayer. It might be reading scripture.
Yeah.
It could be watching your favorite movie,
Mm-hmm.
listening to your favorite song. These are things that make our lives better
That's
in
good.
specific ways. So sometimes the better thing might be in the thinking space. Sometimes it might be more emotional. Sometimes it might be behavioral. Sometimes it
Mm-hmm.
might be physical. It's like, you know what would make me better? If I took my medication on time.
Yep.
You know, if I'm supposed to take in the morning, I have a little reminder now or put a little sticky note. Take your medication, Peter Pignon. Like, this is something you need to take. Get it in your
Yeah.
system. Have you drank water today?
Right.
Simple things like that involve and improve your mental health.
That's
Because
really good.
again, we're trying to keep that cycle going. I see it going from awareness, evaluation, management, awareness. That's the engine just
Yeah.
humming, going
Yeah.
smoothly when we're able to do that.
That's really
So that
good.
first part of evaluation is evaluating what we're aware of. The
Okay.
second part is evaluating what we could do about what we are now aware
That's
of.
good.
And so there's a
That's
lot of
good.
different things, but the strategies that we use could be in any of those 5 areas: thoughts, emotions, behaviors,
Mm-hmm.
physical realities, and then the relationships. So it might be, oh, I could call a friend, I could text a friend, I could hang out
Yeah.
with a friend, maybe go to church, maybe go to a support group, maybe go volunteer somewhere.
That's good.
Those are
Say it
all
again.
different things.
Five areas. You said
Hmm.
emotions, thoughts, emotions, behavior,
Hmm.
physical,
Physical. Yeah.
and relationships. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Hmm.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Well,
the memory aid that you were saying it right, is mental,
yeah.
emotional,
Oh, okay.
physical,
Okay.
behavioral, relational. So
Gotcha.
those are the 5
Ooh,
areas.
that's
For anybody
good.
that's taking notes, that's the way
Yeah,
that
I
I
need
see it
y'all
in
to
my
take
head.
notes. Take notes. That's
Yeah.
really good. So, as a counselor, life coach, therapist, working with people, what are some of the main things that you see people are struggling with right now? What are some of the things that people are coming in and really navigating through, struggling with, that may be seen in most case scenarios? Is there anything that you've seen or that you're seeing that people really are dealing with these days?
I think that it is trauma. I think
Mm,
that we don't recognize what trauma is a lot of the time. And trauma just means wound.
okay.
So if we scale it, there's 10 different levels of trauma.
Okay.
There's level 1 all the way to level 10. And so level 10 is like life threatening for you or someone you love, and
Yeah.
maybe even somebody passing. It's that high level. So I
Okay.
think a lot of us grow up, at least in our culture, and we know what the level 10 is.
Yeah.
But as we go down past level 7, we lose touch with what that could be,
Ooh, that's
you know?
good.
And
That's
so
good.
we end up storing these things. And a lot of times people have come in and they're just like, I feel this way. and I have no reason to feel this way because my life is fine and things
Mm,
are okay, or I have a good job, or I'm in a good relationship, and so they look at these factors that are basically things that they thought at some point, if I just have that, then I will feel better.
mm.
And then they get that thing and it doesn't
Ooh,
make them feel better. So then it's like, well, we're back to the drawing board. Where do we go now?
right,
Because that's the thing that I thought was going to fix it, and it didn't.
right,
So what do I do now? So I think all of us, no one goes through life without having some level of trauma.
right.
And I think that needs to be clear because people are throwing around the word trauma a lot and calling
Yeah,
things like, the waiter got my food wrong and it's traumatic. I don't want to call everything traumatic,
yeah.
but that's what happens in our cultures. We take this word and now we slap the sticker on everything.
Mm,
But at the same time, I'm still ultimately happy about it because we're at least talking about it.
right,
I think we need to talk about it in a healthy way to be able to say, no, that's not traumatic. Like you're
yeah,
quit playing with
right.
that. But there are ways to know that there are things that are traumatic for us. And we
Okay.
know that it's traumatic because of the way that it changes our brain,
Mm,
changes the way that we think, and we feel those effects of it. So a lot of times when people know about the depression or the
yeah,
anxiety or the panic attacks or the obsessions,
yeah.
there's some trauma behind there that when they
Mm,
deal with it, it might not completely resolve the depression, anxiety, or obsessions,
okay.
but the trauma untreated was making it more intense. These other
Gotcha,
things that they were experiencing,
gotcha.
and so that's the issue that I think I uncover the most because people are more prone to go to counseling if they have depression, anxiety, or obsessions. Like those are
Right.
the more like front facing parts of us that we recognize. I can't get out of bed, or I'm having
Mm-hmm.
suicidal thoughts. My heart's racing, the anxiety's there, but the trauma sometimes we don't realize it's there. So if I
Mm,
had to say, I mean, those are the main things that I see is
okay.
trauma, depression, anxiety, and obsessive compulsive issues for the
Wow.
most part in my practice. And that's been what I've specialized into in
Okay.
my reading and training. But I did that statistically because again, I'm a nerd and I was like, what are the chances, like what are the issues
Yeah,
that most human beings are going to face
yeah.
statistically in their lives? And
Okay.
those are the issues that I wanted to specialize in. And they also
Ooh,
happen to be the issues that I have dealt with myself. So it was kind of like a win-win of like this is what most people are facing
yeah,
and this is what I've faced as well. And so it's just been a really great journey.
yeah. If you have someone watching right now and they say you may have one person on one spectrum and say, you know what, I have so much trauma. I don't think I could even work through all of that. I
Mm,
mean, this is just it's just who I am. And
yeah.
then you may have some people watching who say, I may be on that side of maybe on the scale from 1 to 10, I may be, 1, 2, or 3.
Mhm.
How
Yeah.
does a person um really discover, and I guess you can answer on both ends,
Yeah.
and work through those traumatic events? So if you have someone what would you say to the person who says, I just have a lot of trauma and I don't
Mhm.
think I can work through it? And then what
Yeah.
would you say to the person who may feel like they're 1, 2, or 3, but they're not sure? What would you say, or how would you say they should go about it?
I am biased because I've dealt with my trauma in
Okay.
professional counseling with a
Okay.
therapist, walking through it and in that. So I just want to be honest about that. Like, I don't see how I could have done it on my own because I
Mm.
was trying to just use tools, but there is a relational dynamic
Ooh.
that us as human beings need. So there was only so much self help that I could do on my own, even knowing all of the treatment plans and
Yeah.
knowing all the steps. I knew the steps, but
Yeah.
there's a difference between the
Ooh.
educational content and the experiential. So I had to sit with a counselor and be a human being.
Ooh. Peter. Peter. You're talking right now, because I think sometimes people think that they can read a book, they can watch a YouTube, they can go to church, they
Hmm.
can go to a support group in the community and not have that relational interaction with another human being
Yeah.
and think they're going to be okay. I
Hmm.
think, in my opinion, one of the ways that a person can work through trauma, especially if it's related to another person,
Yeah.
is after you get those tools, you got to go practice it in a community.
Hmm. Yes.
And that can be a scary thing, especially if a person's been betrayed,
Hmm.
they've been used, abused by people, and now you want me to go back into an environment
Yeah.
to potentially get done like I
Hmm.
got done in my past. I think a lot of people have a hard time with actually seeing the benefits of what relationships can do to their healing process.
Yeah. And that's why trauma changes our brain, because it's basically, it flags whatever it is that happened to us, and it says, I'm going to keep it right here to make sure that that never happens again.
Wow.
Or it says, I'm going to stuff that down so that I don't remember it anymore, so that increases the chances of it never happening again. So that's the whole
Wow.
range of it, of like, I'm either going to hold it up here, and so everywhere I go I'm scanning my environment to
Right.
make sure that that doesn't happen again, or
Woo.
I'm going to wipe it out of my memory so that I can just act like it didn't happen. And
Yeah.
maybe if I act like it didn't happen, it will never happen
Oh
again.
my goodness. That's
And so
that
those are
that
some of the
is
changes that, when we are, like you said, this person that is listening, that is dealing with this trauma, I see it like a bunch of a stack of files on a
mm,
desk. You don't open up all the files at
right.
once. You just
Right.
start with one. And I think
That's
that's
good.
part of the misconception about counseling and therapy, is that you're going to go in and
Mhm.
you're just going to unload all the traumas. You're going to be like, well, here's my stack.
Yeah.
And then the therapist is going to be like, okay, well, this one conversation is going to heal you.
Abracadabra.
You can't do it. There's no
Yeah.
silver bullet or magic potion. It's one thing at a time,
Oh, that's
you know?
good.
And so even somebody saying, even just the admission
Mhm.
of, I have untreated trauma,
Wow.
that's the first step.
Yeah.
Just saying that,
Yeah.
that's just saying I have a stack.
Ooh.
And that's all a therapist needs to hear when in
Yeah.
that first session. Is just like,
Wow.
hey, I have a stack of traumas. And then we say, okay, thank you for telling me that. Like, that is a big step. Just
Yeah.
saying, just pointing to the stack. This is a
Right.
stack. And a good therapist is not going to make you go to one of those files before you're ready. That's our job, is to help you learn the skills to
Ooh.
be strong enough to go through that stack.
That is huge. That is
So
huge.
there's
So what
that helps us.
um what about for the person who may be at a 1, 2, or 3 and they're not sure?
Hmm.
What would you say to them regarding, you know, potentially being open to looking into that trauma?
I think in the similar way, is
Okay.
that's a big step to say that you're a 1, 2, or 3,
Right.
because you can already feel that awareness kicking in, and now
Mm.
we're evaluating. And so, I would say, if there's a safe person in your life, then you don't have to go from telling nobody to telling everybody.
Right.
If you can find a safe person to just say, "Hey, look, this guy Peter threw out a scale, and my brain just automatically, started going through some awareness and evaluation, and I'm a
Right.
1, 2, or 3 on that." Like, I don't even know if it's 1, 2, or 3, or I don't know if I'm bouncing
Yeah.
between, a 1 and a 3. There's just this fluctuation.
Yeah.
But I just needed you to know that. And over the next
Mm.
few weeks, as I'm praying or as I'm journaling,
Yeah.
I just want, could I give you an update?
Yeah.
Are you willing to walk this journey with me? I don't know what's down there. I
Okay.
don't know all that's there. So the other person has a stack. They're like,
Right.
oh, I don't want to go talk because I got a stack. And this other person, I don't know if I have a stack. Maybe I have a stack.
Yeah.
I might have a file. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I don't know what's there. So Um, in our friendships, in our family relationships, in our ministry relationships, there's a lot of that vulnerability practice, because being
Yeah.
vulnerable is a skill.
Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. Pause, pause, pause. You just said something right there. Repeat that one more time.
Being vulnerable is a skill. So in these
Woo.
other relationships, I know it's hard to go talk to a therapist, and sometimes, most of the time, you don't know that person. And so it's hard to
Mm.
just feel like I got to go in there and I got to share 100% of the details.
Yeah.
That's hard. We can
Wow.
practice with lower percentages of details. I don't
Mm-hmm.
recommend practicing with lower levels of honesty. I
Okay.
think we should all be 100% honest
Okay.
and appropriately detailed.
Oh.
So, like, even in this conversation, I
Yeah.
told you that I've experienced trauma.
Yeah.
So, in a conversation like this, I'll probably stay somewhere between 10 and 25% of the detail.
Okay.
Because I'm not trying to trigger anybody in
Right.
this kind of a conversation. If somebody has deeper questions, I'm an open book, but I'm being
Yeah.
100% honest with 10 to 25% of the detail. So I can say that there was
Right.
emotional and sexual abuse in my story, but feel
Yeah.
that. That's
Right.
10 to 25%. I'm not saying where it happened and who it was and all those
Right.
specifics there. So the
Right.
vulnerability practice is being 100% honest, but
Yeah.
with these lower levels of detail. Even 1% detail is just sharing the number. Hey, I'm a 7 today. I'm a 5.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a 3. I'm a 1.
Yeah.
That's being 100% honest with 1% detail.
Yeah.
And just
Ooh.
that, if you're doing it the way that we want you to, just that is vulnerable. If I look at you and
Wow.
say, "Hey, my friend, I'm a 5 today." And you
Yeah.
look at me and you say, "Thanks for sharing."
Yeah. That
That's
is
vulnerability practice.
so you said there's a differentiation between honesty, because we should
Mhm.
always be honest,
Yeah.
and then details in which we share
Mhm.
about ourselves.
Mhm. That's why we say, "Can you be honest and open?" Openness has
Mm.
to do with detail. So I might tell somebody that I'm going to the doctor, and I
Okay.
might tell them what's going on there, but only with the doctor am I gonna give them another level of access to listen
Mm.
to my heart, to check my ears, to look down my throat, or whatever they need to do.
Yeah.
So I'm giving a lower level of detail over here, but I'm being honest all the way. Hey, I think I'm sick.
Yeah.
I need some help. I'm going in this for a further evaluation.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing with mental health care
Yeah.
is, you're talking about these things that are going on in your life, but
Mhm.
in the presence of a mental health conversation, we're able to evaluate further and together.
Yeah. I think this whole mental health thing really took off. When I say take off, became more dominant in conversations during, we all know that
Yeah.
COVID time frame.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting because mental health is very important, but I
Hmm.
think on the other side of that, sometimes it can be, like you said, we label in everything,
Yeah.
you know. And so, what are some things that you've seen since that COVID time? What are some things that you've seen in the culture? What are some things that you've seen amongst people
Mm.
that has literally changed, taken a shift in the mental health world since COVID?
Well, I think that COVID was one of the first times in a lot of people's generation
Mhm.
where the whole world was experiencing something that's traumatic.
Right.
Not on all, it wasn't all at the same level,
Right.
but there it was the potential for the loss of life and the loss
Mm.
of loved ones.
Mm.
And I saw people that had never experienced anxiety their whole lives, and they're adults,
Yeah.
and they're coming to me and saying, I'd heard people talk about anxiety,
Yeah.
but I didn't know it,
Woo.
and I'm experiencing it now. And so I think that that was something that was challenging for a lot of people, is
Okay.
that it involved a lot of anxiety. It involved grief.
Mm.
And for some of us, like my father passed away from COVID complications in
Wow.
2021. And
Wow.
that's a significant journey that I've been on.
Absolutely.
But that was the most extreme, either losing a loved one and then all the way toward, to something that's less extreme, still valid,
Yeah.
but maybe you lost a job. Maybe you, like some teenagers that I talked to,
Yeah.
didn't get to go to their prom,
Right. Right.
or, they didn't get to go to college the
Hmm.
way that they thought they would.
Yeah.
They didn't get to play their last game.
Yeah.
Again, those are not the same as losing a loved one, but it's still a
Absolutely.
loss,
Right.
and it still could have been traumatic. Not for
Hmm.
everybody, but I think that's what happened. Is it was just so much loss, so much
Yeah.
change, so much grief, and a lot of people could not ignore it. So
Mm.
in unhealthy ways, some people were going further into avoidance, further into addiction,
Yep.
or picking up an addiction to try to
Yep.
make it through. And then other people actually had time to do some healthy coping strategies.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, so many pictures of people outside running, walking, playing on the playgrounds, like
Yeah.
doing all kinds of, it's like, hey, I didn't know I knew how to rollerblade anymore. And, they're just
Yeah.
doing some cool stuff. And so there was so much investment with some people in
Hmm.
their mental health. And then as soon as the world opened back up, they went right back to their patterns. And
Mm.
I mean, and honestly, pandemic and COVID, like us just talking about it right now,
Yeah.
triggers some people. They don't
Yeah.
even want to talk about it.
Absolutely.
They don't even want to think about it. They want to bury that.
Right.
And that's what tells us that it's traumatic.
Yep.
Is those reactions. So one is we're going to hold it right here to make sure that it doesn't happen again, and the other one is we're going to bury it
Yeah.
so that we hope it never happens again. We don't ever
Ooh.
want to go through that again.
My goodness.
So the COVID, pandemic, isolation,
Hmm.
social distancing, the word vaccine. Like I see some people's pupils change and their posture changes with
Yeah.
those words.
Yeah.
And so there are some of us that have to do some care, some self care, which is different from self help.
Whoa. 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 Explain.
Yeah. So self help is you're over here by yourself. It's a lot of it is you don't want anybody to know. You're just trying to read a book and get what you need out of it.
Mm.
Self care can involve your relationships,
Okay.
can involve other people.
Okay.
Like you can go on a walk with somebody for self care, and it involves somebody else. It involves God. It's stewarding. It's caring for yourself.
Hmm.
Soul care is a synonym, in my
Mm.
opinion, because the self, the word is, the part of us.
Yeah.
So some people see soul care as more specific than self care, but again, I think the most general way is self care. Um, and so I think that's what some people were doing during the pandemic, and they stopped doing it. And now people are settling in, and just a lot of people are just going through those emotions
Yeah.
that are still underneath,
Yeah.
but it's not as intense as it was. So it's just below the surface.
Yeah.
So I think that there's people that are a lot more stressed out now,
Mm.
because they just don't want to have to deal with it. They don't want to have to go back there.
Yeah.
And I think self care can do a lot for us. I think self care and counseling, those are some things that everybody needs to have a self care plan of,
Mm.
like, what do
Wow.
I do? What is my self care menu, so that when I start seeing those numbers on the worst to best scale, when those numbers
Yeah.
are going, low, like at what point does my human check engine light come on?
Mm. That's
And
good.
when is that? Is it at a 5? Is it at a 4? Like, at what point do I want to personally start engaging in self-care?
That's good.
And so that's what we're trying to do is,
Ooh, that's
okay, when
so
it goes
good.
down at this level, these are the things that I am going to do. So for me, it's like I'm going to go on a hike, or I'm going to go on a bike ride. I spend a lot of time inside
Okay.
talking with people. So when I'm
Yeah.
doing self-care, as much as possible, I don't want that to be inside. Trying to
Mhm.
get outside, playing basketball with my boys,
Yeah.
um, playing on the playground with my all of my kids,
Yeah.
um, as much as possible. Sunshine.
Mhm.
Sunshine is self-care.
That's good.
Every human being needs sunshine.
Yeah.
Uh, Most researchers are going to say somewhere between 5 to 15 minutes,
Okay.
of sunshine. There are people in countries and in places where the sun just doesn't shine as much, and they
Mm.
struggle with their emotions just because of a lack of sunshine. Most of us have sunshine, but we're just not getting it.
Yeah.
That's an example of self care, of something that can be really helpful for us.
That's
So that's
good.
what we're trying to do. Self help is like, oh, I just got to learn something, and that
Mm.
learning, that knowledge. And so we get so focused on knowing something,
Ooh, that's
but
that's
self
good.
care is experiential.
Ooh. You dropping some nuggets today. Self-care, self-help is just the knowledge. Self-care is an experience.
Hmm.
Woo-hoo-hoo.
Yeah.
That's another mic drop right there. That's another mic drop. Should everybody do counseling? Does everybody need counseling? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I have a lot of great friends that would say everybody needs counseling. Everybody sign up right now. And so it's like the win would be after a conversation like this with that, people are just like, Googling, trying to find out who's going to
Yeah.
be my counselor. I think
Yeah.
that's awesome. I think that everybody can benefit from counseling.
Okay.
Um,
That's good.
but it does depend on the person, because it's a real
Yeah.
relationship.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't connect well with that particular human counselor, and then they
Mm.
label counseling or therapy as not for me.
Yeah.
That person. But it's a real relationship,
Yeah.
and it's okay to say that's not a fit for me. That's not what it is for me.
Yeah.
Um, so I think everybody can benefit from it. I don't think everybody needs it,
Okay.
but I think there are times, again, if you look at your own scale,
Mhm.
there are some times when you might want it.
Yeah.
You might want it. And so, like for me, it was such a blessing that um, that 10 years ago, I started going to counseling
Yeah.
myself as a therapist. And I,
Yeah.
I thought that was going to be the end of my career. I'm like, man,
Really?
if people see me, in counseling,
Yeah.
no one's going to want to come see me. And
Mm.
and so I was already thinking in my head, because I'm so anxious. I'm sitting outside in my truck out of the counseling center. I'm like, if I see somebody in there and they're like, "Well, what are you doing here?" And I'm like, what would I make up? What's my excuse? What am I say? Well,
Right.
I'm going in to see this counselor, but it's more like mentorship. It's more like you just kind of pouring
Oh
into
my
me.
goodness.
So
Oh
I'm
my
having those
goodness.
thoughts. And again, what do I don't want to, I want to be 100% honest. So I'm like,
Yeah.
that's not 100% honest. That's lying. So I knew that when I walked into that
Oh
door
my
for the
goodness.
first time, I knew that I needed to go in there and I needed to say, I'm
Wow.
going to a counseling session. And I think
Wow.
that even us counselors need counseling.
Absolutely. And it's
And
okay.
yeah, and it was great. It was, and I haven't stopped. I've been
Yeah.
going for 10 years, and so I can say now, um, that maybe I don't need it now,
Okay.
but I do want it.
Wow.
I want to be healthy. I want
Yeah.
to have a healthy marriage. I want to be a healthy
Oh my
dad.
goodness.
I want to be in this field for a long time, and
Yeah.
it's heavy.
Yeah.
Sometimes people are coming with the worst parts of their lives,
Yeah.
and I have to hold the hope,
Yeah.
and I love it. I'm built for it.
Yeah.
I'm built for it. I
Yeah.
love I love what I get to do.
Wow.
But if I'm not careful
Mhm.
with my self-care, then I will run out of resources for
Yeah.
my people.
Yeah.
And so that's what I would say. I think that there are times in your life where you will need it,
Yeah.
but I don't think everybody needs it automatically.
Yeah.
So when I already had my counselor and then my
Mhm.
dad passes away, I already knew where I was going.
Yeah.
That was amazing to me.
Yeah.
Horrible situation.
Right.
I bottomed out. I hit a new zero
Yeah.
when I lost my dad. I loved my dad.
Yeah.
And but at that zero, that version of me, a
Mm.
5 version of me when I had first started counseling, got to choose my counselor.
Yeah.
So that way 0 me
Yeah.
could just schedule an appointment.
That's good.
I didn't have to find a counselor. So what version of you do you want to choose your counselor? Because
Mm.
that's what was really hard for me
Ooh.
is I don't know if you've never chosen a counselor, that's a process.
Yeah.
Like it feels it's a real relationship. So like
Yeah.
you're having that first session and it feels like a more meaningful, deeper speed dating type thing where
Yeah.
you're talking about them, they're talking about you, and you're bearing your soul, and then they're offering their perspective.
Right.
And again, I just think it's better to do that at higher levels of functioning.
Yeah.
It's great to do it at any number,
Mhm.
but it was a blessing to me that I already knew who I was going to go
That's
see.
so good.
And so I stay at a maybe once a month frequency. And
Yeah.
then when my dad passed, I went to once a week.
Yeah.
And then over these years, I've dropped down to back to the once a month. And so once a month, every other month will probably
Okay.
be where I'll stay for the rest of my life.
That's awesome. That is awesome. It is so beautiful to see and hear another professional that's been in it for a long time emphasize the importance of maintaining a healthy life, you know. I'm going to throw this last thing at you before we shut it down.
Yeah.
What is something, it can be anything on your heart, that you would share to the people that are watching, regarding mental health, regarding their life? What encouragement would you give people, um, to just give them insight, give them wisdom regarding their mental health, regarding their emotion, regarding the life that they're cultivating?
It's kind of the thing that I found myself saying a lot when we started my private practice. So we
Okay.
call it Minds Connected because we do believe that it's about our minds being connected. You know,
Mm.
like when you think alone and you're just isolating and you're cycling on your thoughts, it's so hard to think clearly.
Yeah.
And when we are able to have our minds connected, it's what allows us to really get places. And when you have
Mm.
somebody, it's one thing to say, "Man, I don't think this is true," but when somebody
Yeah.
else hears your thought
Yeah.
and now they're using their evaluation ability to say that thought's not true, or
Mm.
I don't think that's the healthiest thing to do. There's power in that. So we say that when our minds are connected, we can think better together.
Yeah.
So we can think better together, and that's what I want people to know is, and that's not saying that it has to be with us.
Yeah.
It's saying that that's the message we're trying to share with the world is that
Mm.
you're never going to really think better alone. It's
Mm.
in the context of relationships. Like
Wow.
my best thoughts come from my prayer time, and my
Wow.
second best thoughts come from my conversations with people like
That's
you, with
good.
friends, and that's how I think better. I
Yeah.
think on a different level because um, I'm not just using a tool like scaling
Yeah.
for my own self awareness. I'm
Mhm.
sharing it with the Lord. I'm like, Lord, this is where I'm at today.
Ooh.
Help me to be the best I can.
Yeah.
What do I need to take off my plate or put on my
Oh,
plate?
that's
What do
so
I need to
good.
take off my schedule or put on my schedule? And this is really great. Like all of my close relationships have the scaling built into it. I could pull out
Mm.
my phone right now and text any of my close relationships. And if I just text them the number 5, they would know what I'm talking about. And they can do the same with me.
That's awesome.
And
That's awesome.
if it's below a 5, they're gonna text me back praying for you, bro.
Oh, come on.
Because they know. That's our check engine light
That's
is
so
below 5.
good. That's so
Yours
good.
can be wherever you want it to be, but
Yeah.
that's when we know prayers are coming.
Yeah.
Because sometimes five's a testimony.
Yeah.
Sometimes five's like, oh man, I'm so glad I'm here. Like this is great. I'm so
Right.
happy to be here.
Right.
But if it goes below five, that's when we at least want to check in
Yeah.
and be like, hey,
That's
you okay?
amazing.
What's going on? Same thing with my wife. And that's why we use a 10-point scale so that she
Okay.
can be like, hey, how are you? And I'm like, I can just
She
throw it
already
out there real
know.
quick.
Yeah.
And we're still eating dinner, or the kids
Yeah.
are jumping around and trying to wrestle me. And I can tell her real quick. And I'm giving her
Oh
100%
my goodness,
honest
that's awesome.
with 1% detail. And
Yeah.
so that's where, going back to my prayer in the beginning, was, Lord, make me so healthy that I don't need anybody.
Yeah.
And now it's, Lord, help me get healthy
Yeah.
as I'm connected to people. I
Yeah.
want to be connected to
That's
people.
powerful.
And that's where, I mean, if anything is good, it's because of the Lord and the people that have helped me and supported me on my journey, and
Yeah.
especially my counselor.
Yeah.
Especially just walking with him and his guidance, his prayers, and him being able to allow me to be human
Yeah.
in those environments. So that's what I would say, is that
Yeah.
you're never going to get to your best thoughts alone,
Oh, that's
because we
powerful.
think better together.
That is so good. Wow. Well, Peter, this has been an amazing time of conversation and just getting some insight from you and the things that you've experienced and learned on your journey. And for those of you guys who watch, I hope that you all were blessed and happy Mental Health Awareness Month. I pray that you guys were blessed and you received something that you can use along your journey to continue to grow and develop. And we'll talk to you soon, you guys.